Hi, everyone. I'm Shannon, Director of Marketing and Growth at Tactical Logistics Solutions, and we're here for another video in our series with our amazing partners. Today, we are joined by Dave from Swapt. He's the Swapt go-to-market lead, and also, of course, Ephraim, our CLO at Tactical Logistics. So in today's conversation, we're going to talk about e-commerce. Surprise! No, we're going to talk about how e-commerce has shifted from just transactions to being a lot more relationship-based, and why relationships are actually going to be the key point in establishing successful businesses in the future. So first off, though, Dave, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your title of GDM, which is a little bit nebulous, and what your experience has been in the e-commerce space?
Love it. Yeah, thanks. And pumped to be here and talking about this. Yeah, my background's all Amazon. So I was lucky enough that when I was graduating from college, I had done a little bit of drop shipping and selling on Amazon while I was in between classes. And so my career has always been in Amazon from working with agencies. I was one of the first marketing hires at Thrasio, and then since then have led marketing departments at different Amazon companies. And in the past few years have moved away from that role in corporations and more of just been a startup entrepreneur. And I own a couple of Amazon brands myself, and that's how I found Swap. Is last year when I was looking for creative ways to grow my Amazon brand. I met Andrew in the team actually at the New York City Innovate Show and saw what he was doing and was very impressed. And so that's when I told him I would come on and help him grow the thing.
Awesome. I forgot that we had the Thrasio crossover also. My
hmm
positive experience there that we had to stay in the industry, that's how it works. But I know, Ephraim, you also have a similar background, maybe over a few more years than Dave, who started in college. But our viewers know who you are. You're the CLO here at Tactical. But maybe share a little bit about your experience, because you also were a seller first and joined Amazon long, long time ago. Yeah, on mute. 4 years after a pandemic, and we still haven't figured out the mute buttons, people.
Yeah, so I have started Amazon in 2000, like end of 2011, I think December 2011, going to 2012. FBA was still things that people were talking about, like should I send in products, should I not? I get sales doing FBM, like it was still like optional, like it was not yet like really strong yet. Again, there was a lot of stuff FBA available, but not a lot of sellers were still selling from their own warehouses or basements or so. PPC was not existent. So it was all listing a product, putting in the right keywords, and just having sales. So I started back then, sold the brand in 2017, joined Tactical as well in 2017. It's a family business. So my dad started the company and we grew our business from retail into e-commerce. So we help Amazon sellers and Walmart, people that sell on Walmart, and then any other marketplace as well on the 3PL side. And then we do trucking and importing. So we do a lot of different things. We're basically an end-to-end provider for like someone that's a medium-sized seller that would love to work with just one company for everything. We can handle everything, and then we work with large corporations, smaller. We don't discriminate. So we work with all different types of size of companies.
One thing I love about this industry is that there's so many different ways to participate in it. Like, I was also at Thrasio prior to Carbon 6, which is what I was at before. But then even before that, I worked for Hasbro Toys. And so I was doing all the e-commerce listings for all of the licensed brands for Star Wars and Marvel and all of those accounts. And it's just funny how we can all trace this history all in the e-commerce and Amazon space, but in very, very different roles. Okay, which is a great segue. So today we're talking about lifetime value, we're talking about retention, but a big, important starting point for that conversation is that brands historically, for most of the history, thought about e-commerce as a transaction. You were adding something to cart and you were checking out, and that is it. See you later. Thanks for the money. It feels like in more recent history, especially with the development of TikTok Shop and some of these more personable platforms, that you have to care a little bit more about relationships and lifetime value. But what do you think? And we'll start with Dave, and then Ephraim, you can offer your point of view. But what do you think is driving that change towards caring more about retention and LTV?
I think a big thing is standing out, right? In the previous days of Amazon, it's it was kind of like a real estate play, right? There's not as much of a relationship play. It's someone types in a keyword, that keyword has this much search volume, you show up on this page, you make this much money. Very much algorithm, real estate, like a piece of land. And now with the consumer kind of knowing that there's other products out there and the ease of access to launch a brand with globalization and Alibaba sourcing, just the knowledge now being so far spread, you have to do way more to stand out and get customers' attention. And there's just a lot of brands out there, and so I think that's a big thing. CPG has been growing as a space. I see a lot of the cutting edge here in Austin, and that's why relationships are important, but not for every single product, right? If you sell door stoppers on Amazon, I like to give this analogy a lot. You don't really need to know your customers that much. Now, if you sell some unique door stopper with different animals on it, something fun, something unique that has more of a cult following or where an audience is important, then it's different. But if you're a product where it needs to be, you have to have some sort of education or that your customers should care about you, then audiences and building that relationship is so important. Um, I think now more products than ever, there needs to be some of the emotional connection between the customers to make them want to buy you and make them want to have you in their cabinet versus the 50 other brands that are out there. It's kind of the age of white label seems to be going away.
Got it. I mean, for me, also in sales, like for me, my style of sales is relationship building. I got to know the person, get to know them personally, get to know about their life, about their history, about their personality, about their past, like all that stuff. And I think people are connect with that the same way with something that's important in their life and a product. They also want to connect to the brand, understand what their mission is, vision is, what the product helps. Do they have different products that can help me and things like that? So it definitely makes a lot of sense, and I'm definitely seeing that trend stronger and stronger the last couple of years as brands are evolving more and more in e-commerce. It's like when you went to the store, okay, I like Nordstrom, I like Lord and Taylor, I like TJ Maxx, I like Marshall. Like people have like, okay, when I buy my clothing, I always go to this store because I like that store, right? The same way is now happening online is where like people actually connect to a specific brand where they want to go to. So it's super interesting to see how the market is changing and shifting every year. We could say like, okay, last year these people were like top on the line, and now this year they're coming in strong because they have a good story to tell or they have a good product to be selling. So it's super interesting.
Do you think that like that focus on LTV and building those relationships, do you think it varies by platform? Do you think you need to do more work on that on Amazon than you have to do on other accounts or vice versa? Or do you think as we're trending towards more brands, selling across platforms, that they should really just be considering it always? What do you think, Dave?
I think that LTV and building your audience is your central system. And the marketplaces and where people find you, where people buy you, are the funnels into that system, that home base. Somebody that likes buying Walmart in store, they're still part of your ecosystem. Someone that likes buying on Amazon and setting up subscribe and save, that's still your customer, right? Those are simply just like the funnels that come into your central brand, and having an audience and having a system around that is super, super important, because historically it's kind of like we piece everything together with zip ties and duct tape. And it's like we have this strategy for TikTok and this strategy for Walmart. And sure, that makes sense from a marketing play, but in terms of where all of that data and the relationships with the customers funnel into, that's something that I don't think has really ever been talked about with e-commerce.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you can have, if you're going to establish your ethos, then you need your ethos, and then the pathos can vary, right, by platform, but you still have to follow that. And I think when we talk about tactical too, I'm obviously on the marketing side, and so a lot of my focus is making sure that we stick to our mission and our vision and our brand guidelines and all these things for consistency, because they're still the foundation of everything that we do. But at the same time, creating those marketing guidelines and those brand guidelines comes from understanding how the business itself operates. And something about tactical is it's a very human driven company. We care a lot about people. We care about the people who work for Tactical. We care about the people who work with Tactical. And I think as the landscape evolves, and I'm sure Ephraim, you can offer a point of view on this too, but I think, and maybe I'm biased and I definitely am, but having humans at our core does help in those conversations about relationships and building long-term value, because we're not just saying it, but we're proving it in the way that we do business.
Definitely. I feel like tactical success in the last 7, 8 years was just all about that. It was all about relationships. I've been in the space, like I said, from the first event ever e-commerce event here in the US. I was there as a seller, then grew into a service provider many years. I know a ton of people in the industry over the years, people that are around for a long time and then people that are just come and go. So I feel like the people that are here for a long time is the people that actually build relationships. And automatically you get referrals that way. Automatically people know about you and people reach out to you because they always remember you or they saw you. And like whenever their experience was, it wasn't just like, hey, you want to buy my services and then close the door. No, it was more like, hey, what's up? Conversation, have a drink, have dinner together, and all that. So I feel like that's super important for any brand, not even a CPG brand. It could be a service business. Is like the way to go these days. People, as the world is changing, where there's much less communication between humans and humans, especially with AI and robotics and stuff like that, we still want that human touch. So I feel like when you're able to give that service, you still have the customer, again, depending on the product, depending on the service, you have that customer much more committed to you and trust you much more because they feel like they have that human touch to your brand, to your company.
Yeah, and I think in the e-commerce space, especially with Amazon, you'll notice the trend of it's very much we're optimized and focusing on transactions, right? Of like, I sell, I sell an iron supplement. I'm focusing all my attention on how much does this search term iron supplement cost, and how well does my iron supplement convert on that? What's the profitability? How does that change? What's my conversion rate? All this data, but we completely lose touch of there's a human on the other end of that transaction that's buying that iron supplement and taking it, and there's a disconnect on the relationship between the brand and the seller and then the person and who's buying it. And Amazon as a platform has always just been, in my opinion, kind of like a real estate play. And we keep it at the data level with algorithms, conversion rate, click-through rate, and all of this stuff, but we have no visibility or optimization on how do we build the relationship with that customer, right? And how do we? They may like our brand, they may know nothing about us. There's not that level. And when you work with these omni-channel sellers that care about DTC, it's a totally different strategy of a DTC brand versus an Amazon native brand. And so now, kind of where we're on the forefront, and all the conversations we're having is how do we treat marketplace customers in the same way that a DTC relationship would be built out? Because I'm sure you buy some things from DTC websites. I don't buy that many things from DTC websites. I more buy on marketplaces personally, but it's a deeper level of connection to the brand, right? And you stay in tune with what they're doing. You understand when they launch products. It's a completely different relationship. And spending my whole career in Amazon so far, it's all been a numbers game and a data game. And now I think it's more important than ever to hedge your bet and go beyond the numbers and now think, okay, there's more than this. I have had thousands and thousands of customers over the years that I know nothing about. And it's 2026. We see a lot of the ways that things are trending, which we can talk about. But now is the most important time to actually understand your customers.